being adopted in the bipartisan healthcare bill that's moving forward. I know a lot of times people say it's just always partisan up at the Capitol, but the bill that's moving forward in the House that Representative Upmeyer and other Republicans have been working on incorporates several of the ideas that Republicans talked about last fall as part of our agenda, be it on portability, making sure that people don't lose their health care coverage due to a pre-existing condition, on health data records, on wellness. There are parts that we think still are missing, but we're pleased to see that there's been a bipartisan attempt to move that forward. Our property tax initiative is funnel proof because it's in the Ways and Means Committee, so we live to fight another day on that particular issue. And because there is a vehicle, the Senate file on education standards, we'll have an opportunity to talk about education standards. So, you know, those are three things that we see as being good that are coming out of the formal process. The bad, all of our bills on private property rights, trying to protect places like historic landmarks and homes and businesses, isn't going to make it through the funnel. We're disappointed by that. All of our pieces of legislation having to do with identity theft, trying to protect people's social security numbers, notify them if we discover that their social security numbers being used by somebody else. All of our legislation on identity theft and privacy protection is being funneled. And of course, the various pieces of legislation we had on illegal immigration, trying to keep known illegals behind bars if they're arrested for something, and we know that they're an illegal alien. We believe that they should have been kept without bond in jail rather than being released. Pieces of legislation like that are unfortunately being funneled, so that's disappointing. The ugly, you know, that's really the budgetary process. We still don't know yet how much Democrats plan on spending or how much taxes they're raising. It was interesting to note that the governor seems to be a little disappointed that Democrats aren't releasing their budget. Yesterday in his comments about the need to fund REAP, he seems to have some frustration that the Democrats aren't laying out their budget plans yet, and I certainly share the governor's frustration on that. We're particularly concerned again that while we seem to be able to find tax breaks for large companies like Microsoft, that in the Senate, the Democrats are actually talking about reducing Iowa's research and development tax credit. We think that's the wrong way to go for Iowa. Again, we think it's a mistake that bonus depreciation, fully coupling with the federal tax code to encourage small businesses to recapitalize and invest. The Democrats have rejected that. Again, we think that's a mistake. But those are issues that we'll continue to talk about throughout the legislative process. Questions? Answers? Curiosities?
So, I mean, you're upset that they passed the Microsoft bill?
No, we're upset that we're not providing the same sort of incentive to small companies that do the same kind of business that Microsoft does. We're upset that we can't seem to find the resources to help other businesses with their capital investment. You know, it's all fine and good that, you know, we're supporting Microsoft. Apparently, since Bill Gates slipped from #1 in the world to #3, he needs the tax break. But what about everybody else? What about the Main Street business? What about the small manufacturer that's struggling to survive? What about the Iowa business that's currently doing research and development in biorenewables? Why is it that we're talking about reducing that tax credit? Why is it we're asking those Iowans to pay more in taxes? We think that that's a mistake.
Why didn't you raise these questions when the Microsoft?
We did. Specifically, we did, and specifically, we were told that we would have an opportunity to provide the same sort of tax incentive to other small businesses. I raised that point on the floor to Representative Wise, and I was assured that we would have that opportunity. Yet when we offered the amendment to offer that same kind of tax incentive to other businesses that compete with Microsoft, that amendment was defeated on a party line vote. So we were told one thing at the time of the debate, yet when it came time to live up to that commitment, Democrats didn't honor it.
Do you know who's behind the Iowa Fund, or do you have the...
Well, apparently, David Kotchel has stepped forward as the spokesperson for the Iowa First Foundation, or whatever the name is. So I guess he is the person who was speaking on their behalf.
The tax credit, or the amendment that you ran for the
Yes.
smaller, do you know what the fiscal impact would have been? Do you have
No, we didn't get a fiscal note down in time on that.
okay.
It's an issue that we're going to continue to advocate for because, and I've spoken to Representative Kelly about it. My Chamber of Commerce is in town today to talk specifically about that. But the company, Mako One, that is looking at setting up data centers in Iowa is not looking just at Sioux City. They're also looking at Waterloo. I know the Waterloo Chamber of Commerce is interested in doing that. So I would hope that we'd be able to find some bipartisan support before this session is over to treat small businesses the same way we're treating Microsoft.
In regards to the immigration reform.
Yes.
The Democrats say they didn't push their bigger bill that had CEO fines because the Fed told them they couldn't do it. It
Look,
was,
it's another example of the Democrats breaking their campaign promises. Kevin McCarthy stood up before the legislative session started and said that Democrats were going to crack down on CEOs that are hiring illegals. Never did it. It's another example of Democrats backing up on the campaign promises that they made. We certainly believe it's something that can be done. We offered that legislation to pass. It's ironic that Representative McCarthy voted against that several years ago when we put that on the table for discussion. We think there are other opportunities to discuss illegal immigration. We look forward to any opportunity to have that floor debate. We'll try to offer our suggestions on how to protect people's social security numbers. The fact that it ought to be reported if we find that a social security number is being used by two different people. The Democrats want to bottle those kinds of bills up in committee. Republicans will look for opportunities to debate those bills on the floor through the amendment process.
but isn't this an indictment against your own administration?
Why would it be an indictment against our administration?
Yeah,
I'm not being critical of feds. I'm saying that Iowa has certain responsibilities to deal with our own employers and protect our own taxpayers. And we should look for those opportunities to deal with it here in Iowa. I mean, you look at, you talk to Iowans and they don't think that we can just sit on our hands and do nothing because the federal government hasn't addressed this issue strongly enough. So we're going to try to respond to what Iowans want us to do.
Weeks ago, we were told that Bonneville and combined reporting were off the table.
Doesn't appear that way.
What brought that back to light?
I, for the life of me, I don't know. Republicans were shocked that after the Democrats said they weren't going to do combined reporting, that they filed the bill, they introduced the bill in committee, and they've assigned a subcommittee to work on the bill. I'm really perplexed by that. Apparently, the Democrats think an 11% increase in state revenue isn't enough, that they're going to have to raise taxes even more on Iowa businesses. It's very disheartening that at a time when we're talking about economic stimulus packages to try to grow our economy, that the Democrats keep introducing legislation that in effect is the anti-stimulus, has an anti-stimulus effect. And despite their promises that they weren't going to do combined reporting, apparently that issue is back on the table. Shouldn't come as a surprise though. They raised taxes on small businesses last week. Why wouldn't they raise taxes on larger businesses this week? And the bottom bill, I'm still not sure what's going on with that, to be honest. But it's a tax on Iowans. It may not be in the form of a deposit, but when you raise a tax on the production of the soda pop or the bottle beer or whatever it is, somebody's going to end up paying that somehow.